I'm Ragnar Bloodfang from Orc Reviews, where I review all things fantasy. Now, my channel's relatively new, so I've been looking for people who I can check out and subscribe. And I came across a channel called Cracked. Link in the description below. Feel free to check it out. It's a pretty good comedy channel in which I found a lot of great series on there, like Obsessive Pop Culture Disorder, as well as After Hours. Now, as I was going through After Hours, I found a video that really piqued my interest, in which they talked about why Sauron was actually the good guy in Lord of the Rings. And for that, I just have to say, thank you. Thank you for bringing up all these talking points. Because it gets so hard at times for me to always being viewed as a bad guy, always being viewed as a minion to an evil boss. Because frankly, Sauron gets a bad rap. He's actually a pretty good overlord. No, you know what? He's a phenomenal overlord. He's managed to do far more for the orc people than I've seen any other leader do in Middle-earth. He's managed to give us a nation. He's managed to raise us up, give us a sense of pride. He's also managed to give us a stable form of government. In his absence, we're able to elect our own leaders. That's pretty amazing. Although our elections usually consist of killing the highest ranking guy and taking his position, but that's beside the point. What matters is the fact that you're judged based on your body count. I mean merit. For some of those who don't know, you brought up a lot of talking points and, well, I have to agree with a lot of them. But there's some people out there who just aren't quite comprehending entirely what you are talking about. So, I figured I would expand on your arguments and go a little bit more in depth. Before I start, I do have to say, Sauron, I am very disappointed in you. You're named after my Dark Lord and Master, and you're quoting the Silmarillion? We all know that's just elven war propaganda. You should know better than to bring out that kind of stuff. Well, we're going to do this in a bit of a top 10 format, but I'm going to go with 11 because, frankly, as I was writing out the script for this, I kind of just started going a little bit further than I should have, so there's just like one extra. So, bonus material. How should I start this? Moving on! First point made by Michael Swain, in which he talks about how the orcs are losing at the very beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring. When it starts off the narration, you're seeing the orcs getting slaughtered by an unsanctioned invasion of my home nation by the elves and the humans. Now, were we losing? Yes, we were. And then Sauron stepped out and started manning up and fighting a lot of these humans and elves. And you know what? I'm proud to have him as my leader. A lot of you might start throwing out the insults of, well, why didn't Sauron come out first? What nation's leader steps out onto the battlefield? Does the United States President show up? Haven't seen him fighting on the front lines anywhere. I haven't seen any nation's leadership fighting on the front lines anywhere. So, think about that. Sauron is stepping up, and he's doing far more for his people than I've seen anyone else in the world do. So, point one for Sauron. Now, as they were fighting, Sauron stepped out. He was taking out a lot of the enemies, and he managed to kill off the human king. In fact, he knocked him to the point where he was flying way over to the side, and his son Isildur runs over to his father. Now, Sauron, being the great guy that he is, walks over, and he reaches his hand down as a way to, offer a hand, help the young lad up, because he did just lose his father, and Sauron possibly was even going to apologize for killing this young man's father. How did Isildur respond? Slices off his fingers. Pretty much nearly kills Sauron. And that's just incredibly rude. Two sides to every story, my friend. Two sides. Moving on! Second point made by Daniel O'Brien, that Sauron was leading a lovable band of misfits. Aw, I didn't know I was lovable. The age of man is over, you get spared. Swearsies. Now, that is true, a lovable band of misfits, because if you look, we're not beautiful, we're not made for any kind of beauty. I mean, we're not the purebred dog that people want. We're the mutts. We come from the shelter, the pound. And you know what? Sauron was one of the few who actually said, you know what? I'll take a men. I'll lead these people. I will unite them under me. And you know what? He has my vote in any situation. Third point made by Katie, in which he's leading a band of impoverished people. And you know what? I kind of covered that in my second point, so we'll just move on from here. Although I could do a joke about Hitler, but Daniel did say to hold on to the Hitler jokes, so I'll save it for later. Moving on! Fourth point made by Michael, as Katie was talking about who would want to live in Mordor, and he made the comment of, well, they have great schools. And you know what? That is incredibly true and on point. Because when you look at it, the orcs, we do take the sciences very seriously. I mean, we're the only people throughout the whole entire movie series who actually know how to use gunpowder. We also know how to engineer crossbows. So if you're looking at it, we do place special emphasis on chemistry, engineering, as well as also psychology. Fifth point made by Katie. Dang, she is on a roll. You know what? On behalf of the orcs, the Uruk-hai, the cave trolls, the men of the East, thank you for being concerned about the plight of Mordor's people. I didn't mention Balrogs because those assholes set fire to everything. And really, they're just walking fire hazards. If you have a friend who's a Balrog, do not invite them over to your house until you fireproof the place. My wife is still pissed at one of my buddies for setting fire to our living room. It was awful, and don't want to go into detail, but just make sure you fireproof some things. Now, for those who keep asking, who would want to live in Mordor? We have a volcano. That's geothermal energy, so our energy bills are way, way low. Also the fact that, well, I do live in a suburb of Mount Doom, so it's a very easy commute, very nice neighborhood. Now, granted, we don't have the sky shining through all the time because of all the ash and the soot. It's a little bit black, but hey, that's fine. It's the price you pay for cheap energy, as well as also just a nice neighborhood, and I'm comfortable with that. Now, some people might wonder, well, why don't you have any vegetation? Does it reflect how your soul is on the inside? Does it mean that you're just a bad person? No. No, it doesn't. In fact, many volcanoes in the world actually have vegetation nearby them. I mean, you look at Aokigahara Forest, you look at Hawaii, you look at many different locations. They have forests, they have lush vegetation. You know why Mordor doesn't? Because assholes keep invading us all the time. Humans, elves, dwarves, everyone just shows up on our land. And you know what we have to do? We have to cut down all of our trees in order to make weapons to defend ourselves, in order to make machines of war, in order to defend our homeland. Maybe if we'd stop being invaded, we would actually have some good vegetation. We would actually have some trees. Hell, maybe we could even rival the elves for how great of a forest we can grow. But we keep getting invaded, so might not be happening for the foreseeable future. Moving on! Now, sixth point was made by Katie, which I do have to disagree with. You said that immortality prevents progress, and to me, that's somewhat of a lie. Because orcs, we do have immortality, in a sense the same way that elves do. However, there's a huge difference between the two of us. We actually are industrious. We continue working to better ourselves. We're studying sciences. We're studying psychology. We're doing everything we can to make our group of people be raised up by our own efforts. Now, what prevents progress is magic. The elves have been relying on magic for an extremely long time. In fact, when was the last time you saw the elves being industrious? They're not. They just focus on maintaining their forest, on maintaining their immortality, and that's it. If you look at the orcs, the dwarves, the humans, even the filthy halflings, they're still willing to work in order to grow crops and build a community. Elves don't even do that. They just kind of live elusively in a way. And that, frankly, it doesn't help. It does not help in the slightest. So I think that it might actually be one of the reasons why elves tend to hate orcs as much as they do. Is, frankly, I don't see them stepping up their game. They're not working to better themselves. Orcs, on the other hand, we are constantly striving to advance and to move forward because we don't want to be stuck in the past. We don't rely on magic. There's only a few people in Mordor who actually rely on magic. And for that, we leave them to it. You know, that's their practice. But for us, we're going to get by on our own merit. And for that, that's one of the reasons why we focus as hard as we do into advancing ourselves. Seventh point, which is going to be piggybacked on by my eighth point of the gay marriage and free healthcare. Now, seventh point will be the gay rights in marriage. To be honestly, I do have to touch on that. I mean, it's not entirely about love, it's about who you can tolerate for the longest amount of time. And that's kind of how love happens for orcs, is tolerance. Tolerance is the beginning of something beautiful. And the thing is, orcs, we do all kind of tend to look alike. You don't really know the gender until after the I do's are said. So at that point, oh well. For me, it's one of the reasons why I married a human woman. It just worked out better and she smelled a lot nicer too. The downside, though, is it tends to go above and beyond with the Bath and Body Works. It's a little ridiculous at times, as well as also the Starbucks purchases. In fact, I don't even recognize when the seasons have changed, with the exception of what flavor Starbucks drink that she has that day. I know that fall has officially happened when pumpkin spice is being drunk, and I know that winter's here when peppermint mocha is in her cup. I don't even know how the hell Starbucks has even built anything in Mordor. They seem to be everywhere. They're taking over faster than the shadows of Mordor, for crying out loud. But that's a story for a different time. So, moving on. Eighth point, made by Michael. Free healthcare. That is true. We do have free healthcare. The downside is we have it because so many people die in battle. I mean, not what we would like, but that's just how things are. We do tend to die very quickly in battle. Because of that, you don't really have to provide health care to someone who's already dead. That and also the fact we do tend to eat our dead, as well as also sometimes our wounded. Not too proud of that, but it does beat eating maggoty bread. So, moving on. Now, ninth point made by Sauron, in which you were talking about Melkor, later called Morgoth, and the fact that he took elves, tortured them, twisted them, warped them into what you see today. And the issue I have with that is, yes, we are, in a sense, like PTSD, POWs, pretty much the worst things that you can expect to have happen to an elf, kind of, is what we became. And you said that just because of that we're evil. And because of that, Sauron is evil. And frankly, I take offense to that. Melkor, later called Morgoth, was pretty much the textbook definition of a toxic leader. You can't blame Sauron for what Morgoth did. Sauron took command after he left, and he did everything he could to turn Mordor around. And I frankly think the hatred you have towards, Sauron is really you're just projecting your hatred towards Morgoth onto Sauron. It's projecting. It's kind of what you're doing, and I've learned that because I've been doing night classes at the University of Mordor. We're the fighting Balrogs. We shall pass! Moving on. Now, the 10th point made by Michael, in which you talk about interracial relations, and Mordor, in which how the elf king got angry at his daughter for wanting to marry a human. Now, I don't see the issue with Aragorn and the water horse elf. Sorry, that's the only thing I really know her by is the fact that she made water horses. She made horses out of water to attack the ringwraiths. That's the full extent of what I know about her. I don't even know her name. So Aragorn and Waterhorse. King was objecting to it because, can't mix the races. Whereas if you look at the orcs, they're pretty much cool with whatever. I mean, that's just kind of how Mordor is. I mean, we have a pretty strong alliance with the men of the East. In fact, we have to do cross-training with them in order to just show cohesion between our two people. And I have to say, it was a pretty amazing experience. I had a chance to ride on a mammoth. It was insane. Loved it. I had a chance to fire a bow and arrow from it. Great experience. If you ever have a chance to meet the men in the East, see what you can do about possibly riding a mammoth. It's phenomenal. Also, you shouldn't really be bonding over murdering people like how Legolas and Gimli were. It's a little screwed up, a little bit in the head. So keep that in mind. Not prime examples of interracial relations when it comes to friendships. Now, as for relationships, I mean, my wife is human. And we don't really have an issue with interracial breeding here in Mordor. I mean, if you're an orc and you love a human, that's fine. If you're an orc and you love an elf, that's also fine. If you're an orc and you happen to love a filthy halfling, you're still accepted. Yeah, still accepted. Not proud of that, but for what Frodo and Samwise did by detonating that weapon of mass destruction, causing all that devastation, not a big fan of hobbits, so if my prejudice is shining through, still not going to apologize. Not a fan of filthy halflings. So, moving on. 11th point. I want to talk about war crimes. And I'm sorry for doing this, but I'm going to have to dive even further back. I'm going to go into the Hobbit movies. Now, what happened when the elves had an orc POW? After they questioned him, they promised to release him. Did they? No. He cut off his freaking head. Think about that. This person is tied up at your mercy, and you cut off his head after he's given you the information you've asked for. That's screwed up, and that's something I am ashamed the fact that the elves are not writing their leadership about for being outraged over how this man treated a prisoner of war. That's ridiculous. And honestly, elves, you deserve better for your military leaders. Now, I'm going to be jumping back into Lord of the Rings. Trust me, there's a good correlation I'm about to pull up here. The Uruk-hai, when we had halflings captured, did we murder them? No, we did not. Did we torture them? No, we did not. In fact, the Uruk-hai transferred the hobbits and even defended these prisoners' dignity and honor to the point of even killing another orc when he actually made the suggestion of eating them. Yes, they could have eaten them. Yes, they could have actually cut off a leg and had, were able to eat. But this commander, and I commend him for it, he killed off one of the orcs who was actually trying to violate the rules of warfare by eating one of the prisoners or maiming them. And for that, that's sad when these so-called villain creatures are adhering to the rules of warfare far better than these elves are. Think about that. It's a little bit screwed up. And I think that should at least be noted in the movies, that the orcs have obeyed the rules of warfare far better than the elves have. Moving on. Now, I don't have any more points to bring up because that's about the time when the conversation ended. But I would like to thank Cracked for giving me a great topic to do a video about. In fact, I hope you keep on making videos and keep giving me something to laugh at. And Cracked, a day may come when my tolerance of you fails. When I decide to unsubscribe, when I no longer want notifications for obsessive pop culture disorder. It is not this day. This day I shall give a like, and I shall continue subscribing to you until all of YouTube comes crashing down upon our heads. What else can I talk about? Oh yeah, new news. Got a better camera, as you can probably tell. Even have better lighting in here. And I made sure, by following the example of a lot of people on the interwebs and YouTube, to put anime posters inside of my orc cave, which I call Ragnar's Resort. Although I ran out of room. I ran out of room for all the anime posters. But I did put a really sweet-looking King Kong vs. Godzilla poster. Frankly, that's pretty awesome. I'm very proud of that. Now, I also wanted to inform you that my videos will be coming out on a more frequent basis as I figured out the process and gotten a lot of my software down. Took me a little while, but I eventually beat the computer into submission into doing what I wanted to do. Now, I do have a new Twitter if anyone wants to follow me. It's @orc_reviews. Link in the description below as well. So please feel free to follow me and listen to all of my tweets and random things I decide to say because I'm watching what other people are doing, and, well, I would like to make this entertaining for both myself and for you, the subscriber, and for people who aren't subscribed. Now, you're completely free to subscribe if you want. If you're magically compelled to subscribe, then, well, you can feel free to unsubscribe at a later date. That's completely fine. My feelings will not be hurt. And I hope that you have an outstandingly mediocre day. And remember to tune in to Orc Reviews, where I always find the halflings. Hello, I'm Ragnar Bloodfang from Orc Reviews, where I always find that. What the fuck am I doing?